refer to. Okay, give me 1 second to share my screen. Okay, here we are. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm just going to give a little overview of the Gunpowder Valley Conservancy and the Clear Creeks Project, which is the big project that this procurement effort is part of. Just hit on some key dates and timelines for the RFP and then open it up for questions. But if you are not familiar with us, for the Gunpowder Valley Conservancy is a nonprofit. We serve the Gunpowder Watershed, which is mostly in the northern part of Baltimore County, but also a little bit in Carroll County, Harford County, and even a bit of York County, Pennsylvania. We've been around since 1989. We began as a land trust, and we're still a land trust, but we've expanded into a lot of education and restoration programs too. And our original mission was bridging people, land preservation, and waterway restoration. And our original logo incorporated the Jericho covered bridge in there. Okay, so programs, as I mentioned, land preservation is still something that we do, but we do a lot of tree planting, tree maintenance, managing invasives, stream cleanups, and then community projects. We do a lot of this with volunteers as well as staff and contractors. We have a lot of partners in our work, master gardeners, community associations, HOAs, congregations, businesses, schools, and other things like that. But our flagship project is the Clear Creeks Project, and it began in 2013. It's all about managing stormwater and creating native habitat, which the gardens that we're seeking to implement are a big part of that. But the Clear Creeks Project is really a community-based, grant-funded effort. We began in Middle River and the tidal Gunpowder watersheds, Bowley's Quarters down there close to the waterfront, and we've been moving up inland and upland steadily since then, working with communities, individuals, all those partners that I mentioned to implement these best management practices. So a little bit of context to our garden program in particular, or the Clear Creeks Project overall. It really grew out of an effort to complement what the Baltimore County was doing with their small watershed action plans and the kind of practices that they suggested for communities and individuals to do. We wanted to partner with them and complement them. We did a small campaign in 2010 and 2011 called the Jennifer Branch Preservation Project. Moderate success there, but we really wanted to scale up our efforts then and be able to reach out to many more communities and involve many more people. So we got a grant from the Chesapeake Bay Trust to investigate some social marketing and behavior change campaigns. That was a recommendation that we got. And we talked to a lot of people, had some focus groups, and did some surveys. And we found out that there were 3 best management practices that really resonated with people and we thought we could be successful with. One was rain barrels, but the other 2 were Bayscapes, which is native conservation landscaping, and rain gardens. So those were the original 3 that, of course, we're still doing there. But we sought to discover the benefits that people perceived of these practices and the barriers that they had. What was keeping them from implementing these, and how could we help with that? So 3 key social marketing strategies that we hope to use to motivate people here that really resonate with the garden program in particular that this procurement is about. One is intrinsic rewards. People feel good when they're doing something for the environment, especially something as impactful as replacing non-native landscaping with native landscaping, and also rain gardens and micro-bioretentions, that stormwater management. Extrinsic rewards are really important to people. We offer recipients of these gardens a significant cost share Our grant pays for anywhere from 60 to 80% of the cost of these things, and then people kick in a cost share too with that. We also found that people think that sometimes these practices are kind of intimidating to them, and they want to learn more about how they work. And, can I really do this? What is this going to mean for my landscape? So we offer free educational workshops to support these installations too. So as I mentioned in an earlier slide, we started down those waterfront communities, but we've been moving up, up, up. We've been successful in getting continuous grant support for this, which we're very proud of. Since 2013, we're in our, 11th year now, 11th or 12th year, I've lost track. But this is the first, this year, or this really starting in 2025 now, will be the first time that we've offered these gardens to the entire Gunpowder watershed. So a big leap for us into the Pretty Boy Reservoir area and the western part of the Loch Raven Reservoir. So I wanted to give you guys kind of an idea of where do we install these gardens. We do residential installations. We've got a lot of people interested in that. We also have installed in community-owned HOA common areas, and done some projects where we would implement several different BMPs in a year-long project there. We have a partnership with Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. So we're going to be doing some installations on congregational properties to even a few businesses. That's a relatively new thing for us. And then we've also done installations on nonprofit land like Game and Fish Protective Associations, and then a smattering of installations on public lands like Graham Equestrian Center, DNR properties. But really the heart of things is our residential and community properties there. So just to go over the timeline a bit, I know you all have this in the RFP, but the deadline for questions is a week from today, on November 1st. Proposals due on November 13th, and we expect to make decisions on awards on November 26th. The work will begin in spring of 2025, but we'll be thinking about these gardens and starting with our designs in winter, and we've already started on some of them, but the implementation we expect to begin in spring of 25, and then work right now on track to be completed by April 30th of 2026. We have sometimes gotten extensions on our grants. That's certainly possible for this one too, but that right now, that is when we are considering the work to be completed on these. So with that, I will take some questions.
Are you looking for just one contractor to do the whole project?
Oh, good question. We are interested in finding a whole suite of qualified contractors, because we're expecting to really, now that we've grown into the entire watershed, to really be able to scale up a bit more there. And we realize that some contractors may be more comfortable working in some areas. So yes, we're thinking about multiple awards for this.
Thank you.
I just had a couple questions about the RFP. One was plant pickup, perk test, and missed utility. Those were on the design, and this one, do you want to are you sort of deciding still which side you want them to be on?
Yeah, good question. There, generally those have been done by, we kind of double do those. We definitely have the installation contractor doing those missed utility tests, but we also need them a lot of times in the design stage for deciding, well, can we put a garden here, or is there a gas line going through there? So I think if you were doing, if I know that Ben Great Blue has bid on design too. I think if we had a single contractor, we might not necessarily need to duplicate that. But that could be a case by case basis, I think. Thanks for asking that.
One other quick question. For the sizes of the BMPs, is that's sizing the pond areas, I'm guessing, for the micro-bioretention and the rain gardens when it says like rain gardens like 250 square feet or 225 or something?
That is a good question. And I am not 100% sure about that, but I think the surface area is probably Karen, are you raising your hand? Do you have some input on that?
Yeah, are you
Okay, thank you.
talking about average practice area square feet?
Yeah,
Um,
I guess it's average, so.
yeah, I believe that is just the square foot of the practice on the
Okay.
land and not the drainage area. The square foot of the drainage area is much larger.
Or like, would it be like for a rain garden for say like if the ponding area is 225, then the whole thing with the berms and the edges might be like 280 or 300 square feet or something like that. But I guess if it's average, it'll switch a little bit.
Okay, let us clarify that and get back to you.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe that's the square feet that the practice takes up on the land.
Okay.
But
So the
would-
ponding depth may be a little smaller.
Yeah,
But,
we'll clarify on
We'll
that too,
clarify
but
that. That's a very good question.
yes. And I know that there is, we have installed things with planting on the berm too of the practice and not just in the basin of a rain garden, say. But yeah, I believe it's the very outer edge, so it would be a bit more than just the ponding basin area.
Cool.
But I
Yeah.
will get back to everyone on that.
Okay. Thanks.
Another question about so you say you're looking for more than one contractor. Are we gonna get everybody's names that's interested in the project in case we wanted to be a sub on a contract with someone else?
Good question. I don't see why I couldn't do that, or I could, yeah, I don't see why not.
Or if we had an area, I'm just trying to see how to respond to the RFP if you're thinking of more than one contract. Like if our area of expertise is more planting and then the invasive species removal, so should that be reflected in how we respond to the RFP, or should we try to, reach out to someone else to be a sub on their?
Yeah, good question, Vanessa. So it's not, I think among the three types of BMPs, the Bayscape / conservation landscaping, rain gardens, and micro-bioretentions, it's not necessary to bid on all of those. You could bid on a subset of those, and you could tell us how many do you think you could do. But anyone is free to include extra information in your bid response about, hey, I'd also be interested in this if it makes sense to that. And we may be able to make some connections there for you. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
I kind of had a little bit of a laundry list of questions. The first part was on the BMP specifications. If I could just get a refresher of all those variables in the comments section, or is that going to be stuff that the designers consider and then kind of hand off to the contractor and say, like, I already did these calculations, here's what I need for you to do. Like, how important is it for us to consider, W, Q sub V, P sub E of 1 inches and whatnot?
Very good question, Danny. Thank you. So that is that table, and which is I think the last page in the appendix there. That's gives I think more information than you probably need. It was something that we submitted and we had it conveniently all in one place. It's definitely something that the designer will be taking into consideration there. But I don't think that you will be responsible for that. It will be more of a working with the designer to say, okay, this is the ponding depth that we need to achieve this. Karen, go ahead.
No, the designer is going to give you a design that specifies all those things. So you
Okay.
don't have to do any calculations. You just have to follow their instructions. But we needed to give everyone, including the funder and the designers and the installers, an idea of what size these practices are going to be on average.
Mhm.
So this is just an average size, and some will be larger and some will be smaller.
Okay.
And as Darcy said, you'll be working closely with the designer, and sometimes they make a design and then you get out there on the site and you discover something and you've got to adapt.
Mhm.
So then you would work hand in hand with the designer for any necessary adaptations on site.
Okay. So I guess that kind of, if I can kind of keep running, if no one else has other questions. How much variance is there, when we're submitting our proposal, then, one site might not need a lot of soil amendments where another might need to have the native soil removed and then backfilled with a mix of compost and sand and loam. Like, how should we kind of factor that in, or is there any variance after submitting our proposal for changes if there's something like that that arises?
Yeah, good question. Karen, jump in here if you have any input on that. But yeah, we're looking for, an average, but understanding it's a little bit different for every time. But Dan, if you wanted to give us sort of an itemization as along with your bid saying this is what would charge for soil amendments or something, that would help us clarify. But we are still looking for a kind of average there. Is that fair, Karen?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree that it would be you would do a bid for the average BMP as specified here. And if it's a little bit above, a little bit, a little bit of variance, it would fall within that. If it's widely out of variant, if it's going to be very different, I guess you could say, here's what it's going to cost to do this,
Okay, thank you.
Are you done with your questions?
I don't want to hog the time, and I'm sure people might ask other questions I have, so please go ahead.
Well, I think mine relates to what you're getting at here is I'm finding it really hard to figure out what to estimate because there's a lack of list of materials. Everything's going to be different. We don't know how many site visits there will be. We don't even know the travel time, that kind of thing. Do you think you guys could provide a list of maybe all the materials that could possibly be used, and then we could give you our prices per material, and then maybe you could evaluate that way, and then we'll be able to pull from that material list to make new estimates once we have spoken to the designers, knowing that every design will be different. Every designer is different. You're going to have several designers. Quantities for everything will be different. Is that a possibility?
Good question. I have a thought, like when we applied for the funding for the project, we submitted some sample designs. Would that be helpful to share sample designs of past projects that we did to give you a feel for what it would look like?
Yeah, I think that would definitely be helpful so long as everybody's going to be submitting an estimate for the same thing, and then you're evaluating them all in the same way.
Do you think that's doable, Darcy?
Yeah, I think so. I think we might need to think about the timeline. I want to make sure that once we get that together and get it out there, that everybody has enough time to adjust to that. But yeah, I think that would be a good way of doing that.
Yeah, it could either be a sample, one of our a sample past project, or maybe the designer could create a generic design. But I don't know if they can and how easily that would be.
Yeah, I think it would be faster to do it with a past project, which would be, we could pick something that we think is pretty representative of a typical thing that we would encounter, or several things. Thanks for that input, Kara.
Mhm.
Another question that I had, especially with the Bayscapes, well, I guess with all of them, is what kind of planting density do you want us to assume? Like average space between plantings and average size of plants? Like, are we going with quarts typically or gallons? And what's the expectation for that?
Yeah, good question. So I can tell you that quarts and gallons generally is what we use, probably more so quarts for perennials,
Mhm.
and trees are a little bit more variable. We don't usually use plugs, so we because the gardens are, we want them to look a little bit more, mature and robust immediately after planting.
Mhm.
So there's not a need to provide that. Um, let's see, planting density, generally for perennials, about a foot apart on center. And trees, I am not too sure about there, but yeah.
Okay.
But that's about an average density for perennials there that we try to achieve.
And then I had another question that was kind of related to that. As far as types of plants, um, like, do you have a common ratio for the different practices of, like, say, uh, 80% perennials and 20% woody plants or trees? Um, I know it's going to vary site to site, but is there like an average that we should kind of assume?
Hmm.
Question. I would say that most of the gardens that we have done most recently, we've been cutting back on perennials because we're in a lot of areas with intense deer predation, and we've had some real challenges with that. So we're tending to use more native grasses and ferns where the growing conditions will allow that. Some small trees, but yeah, I would hesitate to give a number now, Danny, because I want to consider that for giving out the sample designs that
Okay,
Karen referred to. I think I'll be able to give a better answer
sure.
with that.
Quick
Just
follow-up question on Danny's question about the plants. Are the RFP states that we should price out delivering and picking up the plants? Are we responsible for purchasing the plants, and should that be included as an incidental to our installation cost? And then just quickly after that, uh, is maintenance part of our installation cost? Should we include that and or warranty for plants installed? Should we price out watering, weeding, and the like?
Great question. So let me answer that in stages. So as far as the plant ordering, the designer will be placing the order for the plants, but we're hoping that the installer will be able to arrange pickup with that. So you don't have to worry about the ordering part of that. Um, let's see. The second part of the
Nor
question,
cost, actually. They don't need to pay for the plants.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you asked about maintenance, Gary, and that is something that is definitely on the horizon for us. We don't currently have anything in place where we're contracting out maintenance, or what we offer to people right now is a maintenance workshop and also a maintenance guide that we've developed. But as of this writing, the recipients are responsible for their own maintenance, but that is something that we are definitely thinking about building in, and we will probably soon be obligated by some of our funders to consider that. So I'd be interested in if you are doing that right now, you might want to include that in your RFP as, hey, this is something else that, I could potentially offer, but it's not part of this current bid. And Gary, I think you had a third question that I can't recall right now, if you can remind me.
Yeah,
Karen,
sorry,
go
I,
ahead.
I lumped a bunch in there. It's related to a warranty, but I think that is kind of taken care of with the maintenance.
Yes.
Just real quick, back to the plant pickups. That's good to know that we don't have to plan on pricing out what it would cost for us to purchase the plant material. Do you have a sense of where the designer will be ordering plants, where we should be uh, planning to pick them up? Will they be within a certain range of the sites? How far out should we expect to have to drive and pick up plants?
Good question. Karen, did you have something that you wanted to say in
Oh,
response to that? Or
well, mine was more in response to the maintenance. Just a thought that if you can offer maintenance services, that could be something you could privately talk to various clients about, because some might be interested, but it's not something we, as Darcy said, we don't offer it. Anyway, getting back to the
Gotcha.
driving time.
Yeah, I can tell you, well, yeah, the plant vendors we have used are pretty local to where we're doing the work. At least they have been so far. We use exclusively native plants with, sometimes a rare exception. But so we're looking at native plant nurseries and suppliers in the Gunpowder watershed, and mostly in the central to eastern part of the Gunpowder watershed so far. Yeah.
If I could ask a question that kind of goes off Gary's, as far as other materials needed, like the rocks for the entryways, any type of soil amendment, mulch afterwards, is that also going to be purchased by GVC and then we just pick it up? Or will that be our responsibility for purchase, pickup, and delivery?
That is a good question. I think that we would want you guys to be responsible for that in conjunction with the designer.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the designer's not going to pay for materials. They will specify what materials are needed.
Mhm.
And I believe the way we've been doing it is the installer pays for them.
Except for the plant material,
Except
correct?
for the plant material.
Okay,
Correct.
great. Thank you.
So this is just a sort of broader question around the process. So like the bid is you're trying to get general ideas of what our costs are, but if we were working on the project, we would do the installation and then bill for our materials and hours just based on the project, each project separately, and then but hopefully that will come in like average of what our costs that we bid are. Is that correct?
I would
No.
say no, in terms of what we're looking for, and we created that bid template, right? We
Yeah.
are looking for a fixed unit price.
Gotcha.
I think,
Okay.
Right, Darcy? But if something
Yes.
would be, it's much larger or much smaller, or, there's a special condition that needs to be addressed and it's not generally within that average scope, I think
Okay.
that we would want to be informed upfront of any
Yeah.
price increase.
Gotcha. So generally though, you're looking for like $5,000 for a rain garden or whatever. And we'll just bill you that per rain garden. And then if we get to it and it's like, oh, this is twice as big, then beforehand we'll sort of have that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds
Yeah, I think the idea behind the way we're trying to do this is our grant has, we have limited funds where we know we have, a pot of money to spend down to do, so, and we have a goal of so many gardens to install with that. There can be a little bit of fluctuation, but we we've done this for enough years now that we kind of know what typically to expect, and yeah.
I have a question for Darcy. I wasn't clear on what you were saying about the maintenance and talking to other folks about maintenance.
Yeah, we don't currently.
Actually, it wasn't you, Dark. I think it was Karen that made it.
Oh,
say,
okay.
I'm sorry.
That's what I thought.
I didn't get what she was saying about
Oh,
the.
I hope I didn't add to the confusion. But I just had the thought that if you offer maintenance plans, that could be something you speak to the landowner about separate from us. Because
So
they're
how
responsible for the maintenance.
how would we reach those landowners? Or you
Oh,
would
well, if you
provide
were
a
working
list?
with them on the project, you could just
Oh.
let them know that you can offer maintenance. That was the thought that popped into my mind. I don't think there's any reason why that couldn't happen, Darcy.
But I'm saying, are they landowners for whom you're handling their easements, or who are the landowners that you're
no,
referring to?
they're just different people who reach out to us and say they want to install a conservation garden, and they work with part of our
So
program.
how will we access them? Is what I'm trying to figure out.
Oh,
You have a
we provide
database?
you. We would provide you with that
Okay.
because we
Okay.
have a pipeline. And Darcy, you could explain that. Maybe this is a context that they need of what's that pipeline of how these landowners come in?
That is a very good question. So yeah, Vanessa, so we'll be we have a whole process of people will come to, and by people, I mean, could be any of those groups on one of those last slides that I showed, a congregation or a church that says, we want to install a micro-bioretention on our church property. Can you help us? Or just a person with a residence that lives in suburbia who says, I love a Bayscape. Can we do this? So we have a process where they fill out a pre-assessment form for us. So we learn their contact information, whether they have certain stormwater problems or issues, or what they're interested in getting from us, and what they're willing to do. Are they willing to help us promote a workshop that we might have? So then we take those, and starting in this new grant round, we're going to be having someone who will be doing sort of a desktop analysis of the property where they're proposing to put a BMP. So from that desktop analysis, we're going to look at things like, does the property have a slope that precludes putting a rain garden or a micro-bioretention in? And what can we suggest? And from that subset, or we're going to be taking a subset of properties from the desktop assessments and saying, okay, these are going to move on to what we're calling an on-site assessment. So we will have a staff member at GVC who will go out to these subsets of properties, take some preliminary measurements, talk to the property owner about what might be possible and how they use their yard. And then once we feel like, okay, this is a good one for a rain garden, that staff member will develop what's called a concept plan, which is a very basic idea of, what type of BMP. Is it a rain garden? We expect it's going to be this surface area with, in this location generally, and just a few things. We then submit that to, most of our work is in Baltimore County. Thank you, Kara. So Baltimore County has a chance to review that concept plan, give us comments, ask questions about it. Once they feel like they've got it and, okay, this looks good, we're going to let you go with that. Then GVC will then take that concept plan and assign it to a designer. Then that designer will go out to the property, design the garden, and then will also be probably in conjunction with the designer, saying, okay, we've got this contractor who you're going to work with to do this installation there. So Vanessa, you'll definitely, your team or whoever is doing the installation would have a chance to connect directly with that property owner, either while the work's being done or, at some point. Because I think a lot of our garden recipients are definitely interested in maintenance We try to do what we can with the resources that we have and our grants and our staffing, but we recognize that there's a lot of demand and a lot that still needs to be done with maintenance. So I think you would definitely have an opportunity to connect on that.
Yeah, and since it is the landowner's responsibility, they are at liberty to hire anyone they want to help
True.
them or do it
Very true.
themselves. Yeah.
That was a long-winded explanation, but hopefully that brings some clarity to it.
It's very helpful. So I too had to jump off for another meeting, but appreciate the information.
All right.
I look forward to
Vanessa.
submitting something.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question about, actually, I have a question about the rain gardens and I have a question about the micro-bioretention. As far as the rain gardens go, I've done projects in the past where it involves rerouting of some gutters or something. Um, I'm assuming that like, once the downspouts in, I'm happy to put in the, any kind of PVC, whatever underground to funnel it in. But if there needs to be changes to the way the gutters work or drain or where they drain to, is that something that is on the landowner? Is it on you guys? It's not on us. Like we're just kind of there to do the BMP installation, right? But outside of that,
Yeah, right. Good question. So I would say that anything about, rerouting or anything like that, that would be determined by the designer.
okay.
So, as Karen said, sometimes we find that we get out to a site and we think, oh, you put the shovel in the ground and you find something that you have to then adjust on the fly. But that would be something that the designer would pretty much be directing that and working with you as the installer to make that adjustment there. Karen, does that sound?
Well, I would say that
Yeah.
sounds like it's out of scope of the average
Well,
BMP.
that too. Yeah.
So that would be
Yeah.
an add-on if you were to say that you could do it. I think that could be an add-on. Or if it's just something you just don't do at all, then we'd have to find someone else to do it, I guess.
Right.
Okay. And then my question about the micro-bioretention, at least my understanding of that practice is that there's like the under drain, the rainwater percolates through the planting, through the soil, and then gets piped out to somewhere. Or when those practices are designed, are you thinking that that would act more like a dry well where it's just an area to store that rainwater and then allow it to percolate back into the soil?
Yeah, I'm gonna speak to this as much as I can, Danny, that the microbioretentions are definitely like an extra level of engineering going into them. They're much more, well, all of our gardens are customized, but I would say that they are um, it's a much deeper level of scrutiny, and you're talking about replacing soil and gravel underlayers and definitely the under drain. But the idea is in infiltration, just like many other practices that are sort of similar to that.
Mhm.
They involve, big equipment coming in and doing these things, and often it's like surface stabilization and a bigger degree of planning and for the designers, for us, that's even an extra step of a whole new set of reviews that goes through there. But yeah, mostly involves under drains. I think I'm a little out of my depth here, but yeah, much more engineering goes into that. Does that answer your question or any?
Well, so I guess ultimately what my question is say you're moving more than 100 cubic feet, or 100 cubic yards, which I think is pretty much the standard in Maryland, when you need to pull a permit for like earth works or changing, or like if we need to tie one of the under drain pipes into a storm drain, like is that on us to get that permit? Is that on the designer? whose responsibility is that, and how should it factor into our estimate or bid?
I can answer that pretty easily. All of the projects that we do for the Clear Creeks project stay under the threshold that would require a permit.
Okay.
So we would never be doing that. It's interesting you asked about the connection to existing storm drains. That's something that we would like to do more often, but the county has been a little bit reluctant to do that. So I think most, if not all, of the work that we've done has not been connecting to an existing drain. So it's less complex than that, but definitely micro-bioretentions are more complex than a rain garden would be.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So if there are no other questions, Karen and I will definitely follow up on the requests for some more information that came out of this meeting, and I will send that to each of you and everybody on this recording individually, and we'll also make it available on our website where we've posted the RFP there. But I know other questions are bound to come up. Please don't hesitate to send those to me by November 1st, and I will do my best to turn those around very quickly. Karen, any final thoughts or anything?
No,
Okay.
just, great. Much appreciation to all of you for your interest and your excellent questions. And we look forward to
Yes.
completing your bids.
Thank you. Me too. All right. Thank you all.
Great.
And
Thank
I
you.
will make the recording available as soon as I can. Thanks.